Cadet Marin Solari's boots thudded against the jagged steel corridor, breath sharp in her throat as plasma fire scorched past her helmet. The metal walls around her screamed with the burn of focused energy weapons. Sirens wailed like the dying voices of the base's prior defenders. None of them were human. And now none of them were alive. Cadet Solari, stand down. That's a direct order from Commander Haxel. The voice crackled over her comms, crisp, calm, and clearly irritated. You are not authorized to enter the Keltar command complex. Marin didn't answer. Because what she saw through the cracked visor of her helmet didn't care about authorization. Ahead of her, the enemy base loomed, a fortress of black alloy and alien symmetry, its archways inscribed in Keltar script, pulsing faintly with crimson light. Inside was the enemy's last line of command on this war-torn moon. Marin had seen the troop movements. She had calculated the logistics. Their top brass believed the fight was over. The Keltar were preparing a message for humanity's surrender. All they had to do was wait. But Marin Solari had no intentions of waiting. She ducked under a burst of fire, slid on one knee and launched a grenade from her sidearm. It thudded once, twice, and exploded, ripping through the alien bulkhead and sending blue-skinned bodies flying. 3 more followed. Then 2. Then none. Silence. Cadet, respond now or you will be court-martialed. This time she answered. Tell the court they can thank me when I bring them the enemy's command codes. Her voice was even, sharp, final. 2 hours earlier. Deep orbit, human fleet carrier Mercy's Edge. Cadet Solari, your file says you're resourceful. And reckless. Unfortunately for you, the Keltar don't reward either trait. They kill them. Commander Haxel was a tall man with hollow eyes and a flawless uniform. His expression was sculpted from granite. Marin, in contrast, was still brushing plasma residue off her boots. Her hair was tied in a hasty knot, her expression carefully neutral. I'm not asking for permission to win, sir. You're not winning. You're surviving. Barely. A holographic image between them displayed the layout of Moon 9's Keltar base. 30,000 square meters. 2 entrances. 1 exposed reactor core deeply embedded. A dozen escape paths, booby-trapped. And above it all, a command center with real-time strategic control over Keltar fleet movements. Human intelligence had tagged it as a fortress too risky to breach. A mission beyond the capacity of regular strike teams. Marin had another word for it. Tempting. No. Moon 9 surface, inner corridor, Keltar command complex. Marin moved silently through the broken frame of what had once been an anti-intrusion checkpoint. The Keltar left nothing to chance. Every inch was watched. Every surface rigged. If it weren't for her stolen recon drone, patched with scavenged alien tech and duct tape, it would have been suicide. Instead, it was just marginally suicidal. The drone's live feed flickered in her helmet HUD. 2 enemy commanders stood at a transparent control panel. They were tall, crystalline-boned, and armored in radiant chitin. One tapped a claw across a display. Tactical readouts, fleet positions, human defense models, all visible. Target locked, she whispered. Entry vector, recalculating. Marin bypassed the main walkway and instead scaled the exposed infrastructure above the command floor. She moved hand over hand through suspension beams and coolant lines, inching along toward the center node. The drone buzzed once, motion detected. Marin dropped. And landed between the 2 Keltar officers. They reached for weapons. Too slow. She fired twice. Plasma rounds burned through both their torsos, splattering biocircuitry across the glass panels. Marin knelt beside the interface, slammed her wrist unit against it, and initiated the forced sync. Downloading strategic data. Decrypting enemy command codes. Signal acquired, broadcasting to Mercy's Edge. Fleet carrier Mercy's Edge, tactical bridge. She did what? Commander Haxel stared at the readout. Cadet Solari has seized command authority over Moon 9, the technician repeated. The Keltar command core is compromised. Enemy fleet movements are exposed. She's transmitting everything. The bridge fell silent. Someone muttered, she just changed the war. Meanwhile, in the command center, Marin exhaled slowly. The data stream was complete. Every fleet formation. Every supply line. Every fallback plan. They had it all. She tapped her comm commander. I've taken the base. You're welcome. The comms burst with static, then Haxel's voice filtered in. You're under arrest, Cadet. Marin smiled faintly. Make it quick. I've got more enemies to embarrass. Enemy orbit, Keltar Dreadnought Varashna. High Commander Thasvek clicked his mandibles in disbelief as the screens before him filled with red error warnings. Command hub is offline. Human code intrusion detected. Transmission intercepted. He looked at the council of Keltar warlords gathered around him. Their eyes widened as the human fleet began to reposition, as though choreographed by divine insight. "Who did this?" one hissed. Another replied, "One human." A long pause. Then a whisper of dread. "The Cadet." Back on Moon 9, Marin watched as enemy patrols began falling back, retreating under the weight of their own confusion. The Keltar had built this fortress as a message to humanity, stay out. Instead it was now a monument. To one human. Who didn't wait for permission. And absolutely refused to surrender. Silence reigned in the enemy control chamber. Thick, unnerving silence, not of peace but disbelief. Blood and circuitry pooled beneath Marin Solari's boots as she stood over the still-smoking corpses of two senior Keltar tacticians. Their alien armor twitched as sparks died in their chest plates. Their last expressions shock. She holstered her plasma pistol, her hand trembling only slightly. The data stream to the Mercy's edge was stable, encrypted, and already halfway through its relay. Every piece of fleet intel. Supply nodes. Defensive relays. Forward station coordinates. A career spy couldn't have done better. And yet she was just a cadet. "Solari," Commander Haxel growled over the comms, finally returning. "Repeat, stand. Down." "No," she said simply, walking to the edge of the shattered command platform. Below her, the base's warfactory engine bay lay open, rows of idle exosuits and hover mechs. Blue fires guttered along assembly lines as if the machines knew their masters were dead. Marin dropped down, knees absorbing the shock, and strode across the gantry. There was still one more move to make. Keltar outskirts, Moon 9 surface. Lieutenant Vortak of the Keltar 7th Legion watched the sky crackle with red flares. The defensive net was collapsing. They hadn't heard from command in 20 minutes, an eternity in battlefield time. "What's going on up there?" he hissed through his rebreather. A younger warrior stepped forward, mandibles trembling. "Commander Thasvek's last message," said the human was inside. "The prisoner?" "No, sir. The cadet." Vortak's upper eyes narrowed. He'd heard rumors. That she had taken the cliffs of Draxus Prime with a single squad. That she'd defied planetary retreat orders at Vega's graveyard and held the line with only half her unit breathing. Still one human? Impossible. And yet, the factory lights across the valley blinked. Once, twice. Then died. Inside the enemy base. Marin dragged a Keltar officer's corpse across the gantry and dumped it into the fusion core's cooling duct. She didn't like desecrating the dead, but she really didn't like being told to surrender. Override established. The AI on her wrist chirped in a filtered monotone. Base command now under provisional control, authentication, human protocol override. Lock down external comms, she said, breath ragged. Shut the whole network down. They don't get to play their little war game anymore. All outgoing and incoming transmissions blocked. Enemy units now blind. Marin leaned against the nearest bulkhead, her fingers clawing at her helmet until it hissed open with a soft gasp of recycled air. Her face was streaked with sweat, streaked with soot. But her eyes were clear. This wasn't madness. It was intention. Fleet carrier Mercy's edge, tactical bridge. "Are we still receiving her signal?" Axel barked. "Status." The comms officer gave a trembling nod. "She's locked down the base entirely. Sir, the Keltar fleet is in disarray. They're calling for backup, but the jamming net is spreading. She's jamming them using their own relay towers." The room fell into stunned silence. "Cadet Solari," Haxel said again, tone changing. "This is an official offer. If you return now, we will expunge your violations. Full honors. Command commendation. Static." Then a short reply, "Still busy. Keltar command ship, orbiting Moon 9. High Commander Thasvek paced along the crystalline viewing deck, his claws clicking furiously. "The humans don't have the technology to break our encryption. They shouldn't be able to see our relay systems, let alone command them." His comms officer interrupted. "Sir, we've just received a signal from our own base." Thasvek turned, suspicion narrowed into a needlepoint. "It's human-made, sir. Put it through." The screen lit with a single image, Cadet Marin Solari standing in front of the command node, hand resting casually on a Keltar plasma launcher, boots perched atop a Feld war mech. She said just one sentence. "You have one chance to walk away. Groundside, Moon 9. Lieutenant Vortak had seen a lot of war. He'd seen the Gloric incinerate entire cities, watched worm tanks burrow through spaceports, fought across solar flares and under blackened skies. But he had never seen the Keltar retreat. Not until now. The order came through in 3 clicks: coded, panicked, final. All units withdraw. Fall back to orbital command. Leave the fortress. Burn nothing. The human holds all systems. The fortress they'd built for 10 years. The war base they thought impenetrable. Taken in less than 6 hours. By one cadet. Keltar Civil Council, Homeworld Holonet broadcast. The footage had been leaked. First across the outer fringe networks. Then through the diplomatic espionage chain. Then straight onto every major neutral relay from the Vern Collective to the Ashkari Sons. A young human, armor cracked and smoking, standing atop an enemy warforge. Around her, ruin. Behind her, enemy banners trampled and burning. In her hand, a fusion rifle bigger than she was. Underneath, a title began circulating. The human who didn't surrender. And underneath that, your base is not secure. Your fleets are not safe. Humanity does not ask for victory. We take it. Back on Moon 9. Marin Solari stood alone on the landing pad as a shuttle descended from the Mercy's edge. Commander Haxel himself stepped off, followed by a security team. But he didn't place her in cuffs. He walked to her slowly, stared her in the eye, then gave a nod that felt more like a salute. You disobeyed protocol. Endangered your life. Violated 7 direct orders. 8, sir. You've also made the Keltar step back from a front they've held for 20 years. He glanced at the horizon where alien mechs lay smoking. I don't know whether to court-martial you or make you a hero. Marin wiped her cheek with her glove, finally letting herself grin. Do both. Just make sure my bunk's closer to the front next time. Commander Haxel had expected resistance, hell, even sabotage, when Marin returned to Mercy's edge. Instead, what he got was silence from the fleet. Not reverent. Not afraid. Calculating. The way predators look at one of their own, sizing up if she's alpha or anomaly. Because the thing about military protocol was this: it had no defense against legend. And Marin Solari had just crossed that invisible line, from cadet to living myth. But the war wasn't over. Orbit of Moon 9, Keltar Strategic Offensive Council. You are all fools. General Dravesh slammed his segmented fist against the reinforced table. Holoscreens rippled with his fury. One human and you abandon a fortress? Withdraw legions? This is not a species that will be cowed by weakness. An admiral tried to interject. The intelligence breach. I don't care about your data. Dravesh snarled. We breed hunters. Apex units. You want this base back? Then send in the Praxon. Even the battle-hardened officers fell quiet. The Praxon. Not a squad. Not a detachment. A single entity. A living weapon grown in void, trained on death worlds, armored in quantum mesh and wrapped in legend. If Marin Solari had become a symbol, the Praxon was death incarnate. Meanwhile, on board Mercy's edge. You knew this would escalate, Haxel said, staring across the ship's observation deck. Earth's flag drifted behind him, silent but present. Marin didn't flinch. They sent their best to build that base. Of course they'd send worse to reclaim it. You're not authorized to speak for humanity. Maybe. But I am humanity at its worst day, and we both know that's what terrifies them. Haxel's jaw tensed. If you go back down, it's on your head. No extraction. No cavalry. Wasn't counting on it. Keltar base ruins, 12 hours later. The wind howled through half-cracked gantries. Ash hung in the air like industrial snow. Scorch marks still coated the ground from Marin's first blitz. And amid the shadows, something stirred. Marin heard it before she saw it, an unnatural clicking noise as if multiple limbs were tapping in sync. She dropped into a crouch, eyes scanning the horizon. Then it stepped out of the smoke. Not tall. Not imposing. Just wrong. The Praxon. Half organic, half machine, shaped like a bipedal silhouette smeared with oil and silence. It didn't speak. It didn't blink. It simply moved. Faster than thought. Combat recording log, Solari versus Praxon. Recording initiated, timestamp verified. Status, live transmission jammed. Operator, Solari. Visual contact confirmed. Engaging. The first strike came like lightning. Marin barely rolled aside in time, plasma claws hissed inches from her throat. Her retaliatory shot struck the thing's shoulder. It didn't flinch. She switched to fragmentation rounds. Useless. then to incendiaries. They merely slowed it. The Praxon lunged, ripping a wall-mounted turret from its brace and hurling it like a spear. Marin ducked, rolled, and fired both wrist cannons into its midsection. Still nothing. This wasn't a duel. It was a statement. And Marin knew one thing. She couldn't win this clean. 16 minutes later. Blood streamed down Marin's side. Her rifle was half melted. The Praxon had carved a trench into the floor with her body minutes earlier. But she smiled. Because she'd studied human war history. And humanity never beat monsters by being bigger. They beat monsters by being worse. So she lured it into the server core, the one piece of the base still wired to ancient Keltar quantum fission tech. "You like death?" she whispered, voice barely audible. "Then choke on it." She kicked the failsafe into override and detonated the whole floor. 2 days later, fleet debriefing. "She survived?" the Admiral asked, jaw slack. "Barely," Haxel confirmed. "Radiation damage, fractured spine, internal bleeding. But yes, she walked out of the ruins. Carried the Praxon's broken armor with her. And the data? She memorized every defense code before the core went critical. Silence. Then someone said it. "She's not just a soldier anymore." Axel exhaled. "No. She's a message. One written in blood and stubbornness." Keltar War Tribunal, excerpt. "We recommend cessation of offensive actions toward Earth's outer colonies. Reallocate forces toward diplomatic objectives." Because of one cadet? No. Because she's not alone. The next 10 won't be cadets. They'll be willing. On board Mercy's Edge, medbay. Marin stared at her reflection. Not at the scars. Not the bandages. At the eyes. Still sharp. Still willing. Her medtech entered. "They're saying the Keltar may propose a ceasefire. Some kind of terms." Marin didn't reply. Instead she said, "Do me a favor. Find out where they're sending cadets next year." "Why?" "Because I'm going with them." The scars itched more when she moved, but Marin Solari had stopped noticing. Pain was just a passenger now. A quiet one. The Keltar ceasefire was holding barely. Skirmishes flared on forgotten moons. Old empires didn't surrender with words. They simply waited until no one was watching and then redrew the map with blood. But Earth was watching now. And Earth had given her orders. Unified Terran Command, Directive Alpha Rising. Subject, Cadet Marin Solari, now promoted to Captain. Designation, Special Asset Deep Field Doctrine Development. Objective, Capture and hold strategic installation high threat zones. Assets, Discretionary, Classified. Status, Unleashed. The new ship was smaller than Mercy's Edge. Meaner. Built for insertion and escalation, not diplomacy. Its name? HTS Paradox. Human Tactical Ship. Single seat. One mission. No extraction. As she ran diagnostics, the interface flickered with a familiar voice, Haxel's. A pre-recorded message, stitched with equal parts resignation and pride. "If you're hearing this, you're headed somewhere that doesn't exist on any official charts. I argued against sending you. They overruled me. Said you're not a risk anymore. Your policy. Good luck, Captain." Marin didn't smile. She just powered the engines. Destination, Vale Sector, Black Zone 9. Uncharted. Unauthorized. Unwelcoming. The Keltar had fortified this pocket of space in secret. Even after the ceasefire they still funneled assets here, genetic vaults, weapon experiments, dark AI. Intel suggested they were trying to breed a replacement for the Praxon. Humanity had one answer. Burn it all. Landing, observation log, Captain M. Solari. Transmission, secured uplink, 5:03 Gulf Standard Time. Paradox down. Perimeter set. I've got visuals on the black site. Large dome. Biosignatures underneath, dense. Hostile movement likely. Engaging at dawn. What she didn't say, what she didn't need to, is that she wasn't planning to hold the line this time. She was planning to end it. 12 hours later, inside the dome. The first Keltar soldier didn't scream, he gurgled. Marin moved through them like a rumor made real. Armor adapted to their frequencies. Her weapon. A railgun jury-rigged to overload on impact. If it jammed, she used her fists. When one of the elite guards cornered her with a gravity net, she threw herself through it, snapping a bone in her arm but breaking his spine in the process. Pain meant little. The message meant everything. You wanted to create nightmares. Now you get to die in one. She reached the core chamber in 13 minutes. There she found them. 7 experimental clones. Built from the bones of the dead Praxon. Still gestating. Still learning. She didn't hesitate. Plasma charges. Time detonation. The entire dome began to groan under the weight of betrayal and heat. Then she spoke into the transmitter. This is Captain Marin Solari. Mission complete. All targets neutralized. Prepare for retrieval, if you want anything left standing. Pause. Leave one message behind for them. One phrase. Then erase everything. Across the Keltar sector, propaganda feed override. Visual, burning dome collapsing inward. Human silhouette walking away. Scarred. Bleeding. Unbroken. You told me to surrender. I told you what happens when humanity doesn't. We leave one alive. So every corner of the galaxy will fear our name. 1 week later, Sol System. The Keltar didn't respond. Didn't retaliate. They went dark. Every listening station confirmed the same thing. Ships turning back. Signals dropping. Entire planetary networks blacking out to avoid being seen. Humanity for once wasn't feared because of its size or strength. It was feared because of what it was willing to do when pushed. Cadet Archive, entry retroactively added. I wasn't supposed to be a soldier. I was supposed to train, follow rules and serve with honor. But you don't fight monsters with protocol. You make the monsters remember why they fear the dark. Epilogue, 3 months later, Earth Military Academy, New Berlin. The new recruits sat in silence as the holoscreen faded. A grizzled instructor stood before them. He pointed to the quote etched into the wall. Victory isn't won with numbers. It's won with will. Captain Marin Solari. Then the instructor smiled. All right, cadets. Lesson 1, stop thinking like soldiers. Start thinking like Marin Solari. Because from now on she isn't a story. She's the doctrine. The end. If you like this story and want more like it, subscribe to the Void Narratives. Because out here, in the farthest stars, humanity's story is just beginning.